Wonderful. All right, welcome everybody to another DeKalb County UNITES webinar. As usual, we've got a real treat for you today, but first I wanted to tell you what DeKalb County UNITES is. DeKalb County UNITES is a grassroots movement that formed 60 days ago, basically it sounds like, according to Jock, and it's members of Northern Illinois University, the private sector, nonprofit sector, government sector, all got together instantly as soon as the COVID-19 crisis hit and shelter in place was put in place. We knew that it was going to impact the small business community greatly, so we all got together to figure out how we can make a positive economic impact on the small businesses in DeKalb County. Why would we do that? The reason we would do that, obviously, is so many of us know a friend, a neighbor, a family member that works for a small business. Small businesses are the companies that keep our bake sales going, the band fundraiser, the nonprofit community. We spend a lot of time dedicated to the communities that we do business in order to give back. And that's such a vital piece of our local economy that we knew we needed to do something as quick as possible in order to help that small business community. So DeKalb County UNITES has done three core things. One, we've created a website with a wealth of information on there, primarily about a lot of the stimulus money and financial aid that's out there on a federal, state, and local level. So please go to DeKalbCountyUnites.com and you can see small business resources and you'll be able to see all the resources we have out there. One thing I don't want to forget, if you have any question at all, and you're a small business owner, nonprofit owner, just go to our Contact Us on our website and ask whatever that question is. And chances are we've made contacts at this point with people that will be able to get the answer to for you. So we've got our website up there. It's a great resource for all of you. The second thing that we did is we looked at all the large employers throughout DeKalb County, and in conjunction with the DeKalb County Economic Development Corporation's Board of Directors, got on the phone and called all the major employers to find out, is there a way they could direct some of their spending now locally? And if they had budget to be able to spend on whatever it might be, marketing, advertising, things like that, could they accelerate that spending now and buy things locally instantly rather than in August? And it was wonderful. We had over 50 major employers in our county actually redirect their spending to the local economy to make a positive impact, which was absolutely fantastic. And then the third thing that we've done is this webinar series. I think we're on webinar 20, 21, 22, something like that. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we've been having them. Mondays have been particularly important because we have Dr. Jock Sommese on from the SBDC to talk about the EIDL and the PPP loan. But we also have Mark Kerman from Seaford & Company, a local accountant, and Frank Roberts from First National Bank of Omaha. And the group of us discuss what has transpired in that last 7 days with the PPP and EIDL loans. And it's been wonderful because we've gotten a bunch of information. We've helped a bunch of organizations get through this particular crisis. So be sure, again, attend our webinars. You can go to our website, DeKalbCountyUnites.com, click on webinars, and you'll see a link to all the past ones as well as the ones that are coming up. Don't forget though, Memorial Day is next Monday, so we won't be having our usual PPP webinar, but you can go ahead and register for the next one that's coming down the pipe here. So with that, without further ado, I thought we could get right in on today. I did want to thank Courtney Strohacker. She's with the DeKalb County Convention and Visitors Bureau. Courtney helps me on all these webinars, just facilitate it. I wanted to make sure that you all knew I'm Cohen Barnes with Sundog. I'm a small business IT company here in DeKalb as well. And I wanted to let you know, if you have any questions for the panelists, you can do two things. One, move your mouse down to the bottom of the screen, click on chat, type in your question, and we'll get it answered. Or Q&A, I'm sorry. But we also have chat enabled now. So you can click on the chat and ask any questions or post something there. We'll be monitoring both, and we'll make sure we get those questions answered. It looks like Jock is playing hide and seek on us. It's actually pretty incredible. He can disappear on the screen and instantly come back. So, hey, welcome, Jock. He's back. Interesting. But if we could really quick, if I can go around the room and have you all introduce yourself, the organization you're with, tell us a little bit about your organization, that would be grateful, or that would be greatly helpful. We'll start with Kim at this point.
Thank you, Cohen. I'm really happy to be here today. My name is Kim Hinzy, and I am the Associate Director at AdventureWorks, in addition to being a clinician there, a mental health clinician. And AdventureWorks is a small outdoor behavioral healthcare organization. So we provide counseling through adventure. And so what that means is that instead of sitting on a couch, we have a hashtag called RX off the couch. So instead of attempting to work with youth while they're just sitting on the couch, we're engaging them in activities, particularly those that happen outdoors, to help facilitate their own process of change. It was locally founded by a local, by Lynette Spencer, who is a local DeKalb County resident. And so we're very invested in what's going on in the community right now, and I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Doreen?
Hi, I'm Doreen Petty. I own a company called Doreen Petty Coaching I've been running for the past 10 years that I started to help small business owners. And even today, I work with the smallest of the small business owners as a coach, consultant, and HR consultant as well. That's where I spent most of my career. And one thing I knew way back when, and this process started in 2003, when I was in the teeth of a corporate downsizing that seemed to never end. And I realized that the economy of this country and pretty much the world was going to live and die based on the strength of small businesses. So I wanted to do what I could to help the smallest of the small. So now I work with clients who have 0 to 30 employees and help them with their operational strategies as well as their HR and people stakeholder strategies, and have been pretty much having a blast doing that. Somehow it just happens to be way better than an HR career. I don't know if I should say that out loud, but I worked with a big corporation, so this has been amazingly satisfying for me, and very happy to be here today. And I do help the SBDC with HR consulting, and am always available to any of the organizations that I show up on panel discussions. If anyone has any questions that come up even after this, I'm happy to do what I can to help people.
Awesome. Thanks, Doreen. And Jock, I thought I'd let you introduce yourself. Obviously, you're part in the SBDC, but then, well, what hat you're wearing today, I thought would be helpful for everyone to know.
You know, there's an expression that I picked up years ago that even the juggler takes a rest every now and then, because, you know, tossing all those balls in the air, you have to stop eventually. So I do it with hats now. So today's hat will be the facilitator of this discussion. So ladies, I'd really like to focus on some of the things that small businesses can do. One, to get prepared, to get their team prepared for what's next, as well as to get into the mindset of what their customers may be thinking or feeling. So either one of you, take it away.
You want me to take it first, Kim? Since
Sure.
Okay, so this is, Jock, you're right on point. This is a topic of conversation amongst my clients, some of whom have already started reopening, others who were open through the whole thing, and others that are waiting for phase 3 and phase 4 to begin opening. The first piece in terms of preparation is to understand where the perspective is for all the various stakeholders. So a business owner is going to look at their business from their own perspective, but the real value they have as a business owner, and one of the most significant skills they can have as a business owner, is to not only have that self-awareness, but also be other-aware, to deliberately put themselves in the perspective of the people that they're seeking to engage in their business. And that means the employees, understanding the perspective of the employees, understanding what's important to the clients. You know, one of the most powerful questions I've been playing around with a lot of my clients is, what's most important to my customers right now? What's most important to my employees right now? What has to be true for this to happen? So whatever this is. So and Kim is nodding, so I know. So it could be that what needs to be true for me to have a successful reopening? What needs to be true for my employees to feel comfortable coming back to work? What has to be true for safety to be addressed in the workplace? So the first order of business may be to make a list of what's going to be important to me, and then develop the questions that need to be asked to be able to answer it. Jack, does that sound?
Doreen, do you give those same questions to your employees or your management team if you have one, or do you do it solo?
Yeah, well, it's one of the most important factors in any interaction that we have with human beings is the conversation. If we're managing the conversation in a way that everybody is participating, that we manage the conversation in a way that builds trust, where everybody has 100% participation. So that means asking questions is a way to put a manager asking a question is a way to put that manager in the mode of a listener, so the other people can participate. So yes, the conversation starts with the business management. So I was working with a team the other day of managers of a big medium-sized landscaping company. And the conversation that we were having was, what are the questions? So the very first thing is to develop the questions, and then every manager then would engage with those questions. But one of the questions is to ask the stakeholders, what are the questions? So that conversation can be tremendously powerful, especially if we're willing to ask questions that we don't have the answer to.
Okay.
So that's really where the power comes in, is not having to be comfortable with the idea of, I don't have to know everything at this point. And that's the advice that I'm giving everybody, is don't put yourself in a position where you feel like you have to know. The best way to get to an answer is through a direct question, right? So sometimes Kim, the questions are more powerful.
Right. And Kim, before we get to you, we have to say that here at DeKalb County UNITES, we know that we don't have all the answers, but we certainly go find them, because we are not experts in anything, basically, is what it comes down to during this, because everything changed so much. So Kim, is that a healthy attitude to have, or should we be doing something else?
Well, what I hear you saying is that you're recognizing that there's a lot of things that aren't going to be in your control right now, and that there's a lot of adjustments that you're making as leaders of organizations and as employees of organizations and as consumers that visit those organizations. So I think the first step is you're acknowledging that that uncertainty and what's going to happen is outside of our control. And when there's something that's outside of our control, human nature is to respond to that with anxiety or stress or worry. And so, one really healthy strategy with that you could pass along to your employees, but also consider for yourself, is one, beginning with compassion, compassion that you as a leader are responsible, or likely feeling responsible for a lot of people in your company, possibly holding their emotions and their stress. So being aware and compassionate with yourself that you don't have all the answers, but then also looking at what is in your control. And what's in your control right now, as Doreen suggested, is how we communicate with our employees. And so it's important, and that's the lens I'm coming from a mental health practitioner, is keeping those lines of communication open and transparent, and but also at the same time instilling hope. And that can be challenging. And when you're communicating with your employees using active listening, as Doreen alluded to, and listening to understand, and then showing your own compassion and your own vulnerability in that.
Yes.
I might not know all the answers. I know you don't know all the answers, and this is a scary time. But we're here, we're committed to getting through this together. And what you're saying to me is important and is going to be part of our decision making.
Great. I do have a follow-up for you. If anyone does have any questions, though, go to the bottom of the page. You can put a question in there and Courtney will jump in and tell us that something's there and then ask it. But Kim, so are there some kind of programs for small businesses where there's a wellness aspect and we can learn more about wellness? I'm sure that Cohen, being the type of manager he is, could absolutely benefit from any kind of wellness that he could give to his employees as well as himself.
Absolutely. So we're a small nonprofit organization. So we're a small business, just like you are. So we understand that even though we may be doing a lot of business and helping a lot of people, our resources and infrastructure might not support doing everything that we feel is important or valuable. So at AdventureWorks, how we've chosen to address that and work with the community in a little bit more non-traditional way of creating and facilitating partnerships is through a business partnership program in which we can provide, I provide a monthly newsletter that is focused specifically on managing self-care and mental health in the workplace. And in addition, being able to come in and something that's really popular at my partner's company are lunch and learns. So having an opportunity for your employees to come together, and possibly a topic could be coping with anxiety in uncertain times. And that's something that, so we're professionals in mental health and you are all professionals in other things. So that's one way we could work together. And that's one way we've chosen to work, although we're a youth organization, but to work with our community, and I'm doing that right now.
Doreen, do you have suggestions there?
Yeah, I think it's really important what Kim was saying, that it is about the community. So when we look around us to see what's going on and look at the resources that are available, they don't necessarily have to be, we can look at a resource and think, well, maybe that's not really for me, but you don't know until you ask. And you have an organization here with DeKalb County UNITES that there's a bunch of people to ask, and that's one of the key stress management tactics and suggestions that are made. Almost every article that you read is to interact with people, ask questions, and find people who are thinking the same way you are thinking, or find people that you can ask for help. So all of that seems to make the community really important. Another thing is getting back to what I mentioned before about the self-awareness. What we know about ourselves is a critical thing. So it's a good idea to understand, how do we generally, in our past, what story can we tell ourselves about how have I handled stress in the past? What has helped for me? What has not helped for me? To create those conversations and maybe have that conversation with someone else. Our brains are hardwired to deal with change. So we know that the structure of our brains are hardwired to deal with change. We're constantly in a mode of threat assessment. That's every input that we have to our brain. A little piece of the brain through the limbic system, the amygdala, is going to check, is this a threat or not? So everything we do, we're triggering or priming our brain for a fight, flight, freeze, or appease reaction. And so change is something that we're ready for. Our brains are ready for. What we're not ready for, and what Kim mentioned, is uncertainty. Our brains are simply not hardwired for uncertainty. So with uncertainty, we have to train ourselves to choose responses rather than reactions. So when we can be deliberately responsive, when a stressor in the workplace, for example, is like right now, the stressor is kind of finite. We know what's causing it. We know what's going on. There's lots of information out there. We know that we'll get through it. Something is going to change. So we will have an opportunity to have some control over that. Like we talked about, we can control our responses. We can control the conversations we're having. We can control really how we respond to it, what choices we make. The cool thing, the key word there is choices. there's another layer of stressors that are what we might call type 2 stressors, or things that we have no control over. Business owners have no control over competition in the environment. They have no control over what happens maybe with government regulations. But we certainly always have an opportunity to choose our response. So when we're faced with a stressor, it's really important to be able to articulate it, to call it out, hold it up. If it's a fear-based stressor, there's a lot of things that I'm afraid of that create fear in me and that cause stress. And somebody told me once that the only thing that gets smaller when you run towards it is fear. So calling it out and being ready to create the conversation around it and engaging in every stakeholder that you have can be a tremendous stress reducer as well.
You know, we talked early on about reacting or acting, and we were better off acting. Kim,
Yes.
what's some tips to give us that mindset of being able to act?
So, first of all, I want to point out that, yes, we have the ability to make choice, but if we aren't able to first regulate and bring our brains from using just their amygdala, which is when we're having a stress response and we're trying to determine that fight, flight, or freeze, and which one are we going to do, that's a protection, that's a built-in defense mechanism that our brain has. But if we don't know how to recognize, oh, I'm having a stress response right now, we can get stuck there. And that's being stuck in that stress response means we aren't able to access the areas of our brain in the prefrontal cortex that say, oh, this is just stress, so I'm going to choose to respond this way. So I think that there are some people that are going to be able to do that better than others. And attending to your awareness of your emotions is a place to start with that. So I think some tips and strategies you can start with is awareness, just being aware as leaders, doing a check-in at your staff meetings. How is everybody feeling? And if there's some escalated stress, if you're seeing changes in behavior or absenteeism or low energy levels, then it's time as a leader to step in and say, I notice something's going on with you, and what steps can we put in place? What resources can we offer you here in the workplace to support you being able to regulate your own stress?
And I have a question, and I'll ask you to answer that. I first wanted to tell you that we did get a comment from someone, Kim, who was grateful that AdventureWorks was staying open for their child to participate. So thank you for that from all of us.
Thank you.
And I have a question, Jock.
Go ahead, Colin.
I'm listening to you as a small business owner, and I'm absorbing everything I can. And, day one when the crisis hit, had a staff meeting, let everyone know company's in a good spot. We're not making any major changes in anyone's life for the foreseeable future. Not knowing where the future was going to bring us, but just letting everyone know, like right now, you don't have to think about it. Right now, we're charting the course. We're all going to work really hard. We're going to take care of our clients. We've been doing one-on-ones with people to just check in. And you're right, some have been more stressed out than others. But as a small business owner, I was kind of curious of, we don't have many places to go. And I know, like you're saying, Unites is one of those places, but if you don't know anyone on Unites, the odds of a small business owner reaching out to us for anxiety issues is probably pretty small. I know I found I can't share, or I couldn't share as much as I wanted to at home or even in the workplace, because any of my fears in those environments get escalated because, oh my gosh, if Cohen's freaking out about this, it's got to be bad, right? So I had to refrain from sharing my state on various things, or my ideas on where things were going. And that causes anxiety for the small business owner because we don't have someone to lean on. I was just kind of curious, as part of this conversation, any strategies that don't go too far into the pieces of my brain that I've got to analyze, that are some quick bite-sized morsels that might help, or or any guidance that you might give besides suck it up, Cohen. And I know that's not what you would say, but
I'd say that.
I know you would, Jock. I would. But
Kim and I would not
one
say
of the
that.
one of the biggest things we've discovered during this movement of DeKalb County UNITES is anxiety in business owners, and part of it is just what I described. So I do want to make sure that we touch on that, or if you had any immediate thoughts on how we can self-help.
There are some tips for that, and Kim, I'll start with this, and then you can add some of yours. But one of the key things is to keep it simple. You know, whatever choices that you make, keep them as simple as possible. It can start with a question. It's like, what's actually going on here? That's a really powerful question. Is if we need to look at it. If your intent is to recognize stress, as Kim said, you have to recognize it first to be able to deal with it. So one thing to do is to look at it and say, feels like I might be stressed there. I'm feeling a little anxious. So what is that? How is that affecting? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? How is it affecting my behavior? They're very simple questions. If we're looking to, as Kim said, the one way to deal with stress is to access your prefrontal cortex. That's where that kind of travel happens, when we start getting creative, when we start thinking of ideas on how to deal with something, when we start looking at thought processes that deal with decision making and problem solving. We're inside of our prefrontal cortex. The easiest way to get to the prefrontal cortex is access the neocortex, where language exists. So one way to do that is to disrupt what's going on in the limbic system. And a simple way to do that is start making a list, to actually put a blank piece of paper in front of you, because that signals to the brain there's something to do here. And then start making a list. Create the question, what's really going on here? What do I need to know? What's most important? It really doesn't matter what the question is, as long as it's an open-ended question. And then jot things down, fill a page with ideas that you can look at. As soon as you start doing that, you've left the limbic system and moved into the neocortex, and that's an easy stepping stone into the prefrontal cortex. But keeping it simple, don't let too much complexity go into it. If it feels like things are getting too complex, or feels like things are escalating, then look at some physical response opportunities, like breathing, simple breathing exercises, breathing deep to load the system with oxygen, to give your system a way to alleviate or to release some of the adrenaline that's been building. Give yourself an opportunity for a little win if you can, so you can kind of drive a little serotonin or dopamine mix into your brain as well. So any little win that you can construct for yourself can help too. So keeping it simple is probably the key message there.
And
Kim?
Doreen, you're not suggesting self-medication in any way, are you?
No, not unless it means taking a walk in a direction that you don't usually walk. So if you want to look to, again, to access the prefrontal cortex, to move into a space where you can think more creatively, think a little bit differently, put yourself in a position where you haven't been before. So if you normally take a walk in a particular park, walk in a different park, or just turn a different direction and look at the park from a different perspective. You'd be amazed at what kind of impact that can have on how your brain is constructing your inputs.
Great. Kim, can you help this poor man over here?
I can, yeah. So first of all, there's a few things I want to front load this with. First of all, 40 million people every year struggle with stress and anxiety, and that's likely doubled. Research is demonstrating that about, so it's not doubled, but 62% of nationwide people are struggling with stress and anxiety. So what that says to me is people that were normally mentally healthy are now struggling with issues related to stress and mental health. So, and Cohen, you alluded to something that like the leader has to be in control and the leader has to instill hope and be strong. And that can cause anxiety in and of itself. So there's a quote by Simon Sinek that says, when people are financially invested, they want a return. When people are emotionally invested, they want to contribute. And so when you think about it from that perspective and emotional attunement with your staff, being able to say, guys, everything's okay and things are under control, but I'm having a rough time today. I'm feeling really stressed. I got a headache. I don't know. How's everybody else feeling today? And letting them know that, you know, even the leader, the big boss, the owner is struggling with some of the same things that I can almost guarantee they're struggling with. That vulnerability is powerful. It's really powerful to engage your employees. So I do have a few slides that I'll share with everyone, and you can email those out. I wasn't able to get them to come up today, but I think there's some practical information in addition to resources. But if we could right now, are you willing to practice something with me really quick?
Sure.
Okay, so one thing to do, and I did this before the meeting today, and so this is, you got to be aware that, okay, I'm stressed, I'm feeling it. Heart rate's up, my heart's beating, my cheeks are a little flushed. Those are my anxiety, my stress responses. So take a deep breath. Everybody take a deep breath in and out. And now I want you to, as you take another big deep breath in and out, I want you to start to think of the number 3. And as you think of that number 3, I want you to take a look at what's around you and find 3 things that you can see, 3 things that you can hear, and then move 3 parts of your body. So yeah, so there you go. And so that sounds really simple, and you can repeat that a couple of times. I'm also noticing that, like, I'm grounded right now. My feet are planted. I can feel my weight on the chair. I'm being supported without doing anything. And that's going to do exactly what Doreen said, is send those messages to your stress brain that, okay, now it's time to move back to thinking brain. I can see, because in order to be able to name those things, you have to shift your thinking. We also talked about self-medicating, which of course I would not advocate either, but I would advocate for vitamin N. And vitamin N is nature. And and research demonstrates, there was research that came out from Harvard University recently that said 120 minutes a week will significantly reduce stress and anxiety. And that works out to about 20 minutes a day. That doesn't have to be hiking or running. That can be just stepping out in your backyard and taking that time to breathe. And if you're in an enclosed space, taking those brain breaks at work and just stepping outside, walking up and down the sidewalk, and giving your body an opportunity to reset. That'll bring your stress levels down and allow you to move forward with your day.
Cohen, I'd like to address something, and you know, it's rare that I bring up my academic background, but my dissertation was centered around entrepreneurs and the competency and skills that they needed. And then I asked an open-ended question about, what do you think entrepreneurs need? And one of the biggest things that all the entrepreneurs said other entrepreneurs need is that advisory, mentoring group, so that you could do something like this. And I think maybe one of the results of DeKalb County UNITES could be that there is a sounding board for other entrepreneurs. There's a group called The Lonely Entrepreneur. It's a book that's written by a guy in New York, where you know, he talks about the loneliness that an entrepreneur has. And I understand exactly where you're coming from, having been in businesses my entire career, where who can you tell? You can't tell your employees, you can't tell your spouse, your friends don't really understand, because, you know, this whole entrepreneur thing means you couldn't get a job on your own. So, I mean, I perfectly understand that. You know, it's rare that I say I feel sorry for you, Colin, but I feel your pain right there.
That is a great point. Sorry, Kim, and something we do need to continue the conversation on. To that point, Jock, I've been a member of an industry peer group for 3 or 13 years, and every week we talk online, and it's been invaluable through this process.
Sure.
Absolutely. Sorry, Kim.
No, that's okay. One of the other things I was going to suggest is that we, through that awareness, if you're noticing that your stress is impacting your life on a daily basis and you're unable to engage or enjoy things that you were once able to enjoy because of what's going on, then that's a sign that it's time this is beyond you, and this might be time to ask for some help. And I want to make sure it's Mental Health Awareness Month. I want to make sure, as an advocate for mental health, that I'm the biggest cheerleader in you don't have to be mentally ill to benefit from going to counseling, especially during this time. And we've got a lot of great counseling agencies in our community that would support anyone.
Kim, that could be also, sorry, Jock, that could also be counseling and coaching. Someone like Jock at the SBDC or Doreen or whatever it might be, just having someone in your life that is helping you move from point A to point B, whatever that might be, can also bring a lot of reward, which I assume would also help reduce stress and mental fatigue that might be out there in someone individually.
Kim, if we're looking for someone to help us, what's the first step? Where do we go?
So the first step is if you are at a place of employment where you have insurance, if you have an employee assistance program, starting there, starting with your insurance and who do they recommend and what are they going to cover. A lot of people don't think about that point first. They just want to reach out to whoever they know or wherever they drive by. But if your insurance isn't going to cover your treatment, that can cause stress as well as a financial burden. So starting within your agency or your company, and then 211 in DeKalb County is another resource that you can use to reach out to for mental health. Yes, one of my coworkers who's on the call, psychologytoday.com is also another resource that you can use to look for providers in your area.
Great. Doreen, can you put your HR hat on for a second?
Sure.
So maybe I furloughed employees, maybe I didn't. The mental anguish for both the owner, I mean, as an owner, I hated to fire people. I personally had to hate you to be able to fire you eventually. And while I was firing some guy in public, like we were dating, so I took him to a public place and I said, this isn't working. It's not you, it's me. He just started to sob. And I mean, he was out of control. Obviously he had some mental issues, which I knew nothing about. You know, he told me his story. I felt sorry for him, gave him another chance, and 2 weeks later it was the same result. But it was anxiety for me, and it was anxiety for the employee. So what's the best way to handle all of that?
Right now with all the furloughs, there's a lot of people who are in the same boat. So that makes it a little bit different. But in general, when a manager is in a position to exit people, it's not supposed to be easy, and it shouldn't be easy. When you think, again, taking my simplest is better approach is when years ago when I was working on a thesis and working on my master's degree, I did a lot of work on leadership, and I spent a lot of years in coaching leaders in the corporate environment. And I came to the conclusion that even though there's a ton, just hundreds of definitions of leadership, there's really only one that matters. And that's what a leader is specifically. And a leader's job is to make other people more successful. So how we do that can take any number of avenues and tactics and techniques. And so if somebody isn't succeeding where they are in your business, how are you fulfilling your role of making them more successful, like by letting them stay there? So it is important that we look at the experience that people are having in the environment and looking at how best to engage that role. How do we make them more successful? And it doesn't have to be easy. People never feel good about being fired, but is there enough conversation in front of it? I think a lot of the anxiety around having to fire someone is often that we're not sure. We have some uncertainty around what that person knows about their experience. It's like I've talked to managers a lot, and one of the questions I ask is, does this person know that they are unsuccessful? And so I usually get the answer, well, yeah, of course, they have to know. And then my next question is, how do you know that they know? It's like, what has been true about the conversation? So there's, in front of having to furlough or fire people, it's really important to understand that the conversation was clear enough that by the time it gets to the point where the last, that what has to happen is being fired, then if you did it right, you're both on the same page to begin with.
So
in your particular case, you couldn't have known that there were some underlying issues. Now, and you can't. The very worst thing a manager can do is tell somebody that it's really hard for me to do this. It's like I went through a couple of decades of downsizing and trained managers on how to lay people off. And one of the things that was never allowed is that nobody got to say, well, this is really hard for me too, because really it doesn't matter. You know, especially when you're telling somebody they don't have a job, their whole focus, if you say, well, this is hard for me too, you can imagine what's going through their mind in that moment. So really it's about, if we get back to what Kim and I were saying about perspective and about self-awareness and other awareness and all of that, if the conversation is powerful enough, then when you get to the point where a termination has to occur, there's no information unknown at that point.
Right.
And so that's the ideal situation.
A formalized procedure kind of helps that. Greatly.
Yeah, formalized, but also intentional.
Right.
So you can have a formal process of performance management and all of that, and you can have it documented, but it's really critical that whatever any business owner does, they do consistently. So even your formal process should be simple, and it shouldn't force anyone into like a tiered process of first a warning and then this and then that. There should be it should really be focused on the conversation. It should be focused on the relationship that people have with each other in the workplace and that people have with the work and the outcomes of the workplace. So yes, a formal process, but more in terms of the intention, and to lay it out up front that when you onboard people, they should hear then that if there's any issues with performance, if there's any issues with achieving the outcomes we expect, then there's not going to be a lot of delay in the conversation between it happening and me talking to you. And you have to invite the same kind of conversation from the employee. If there's any concern that an employee has about the experience of work, then they have to be invited and comfortable with the idea of bringing that up.
Okay.
So nothing should be hidden behind the water cooler.
Great point. And I'm going to ask you both this question. So we're close to getting to our limit, but I want you each to think about, maybe those 5 things that we could do, that we could take away from this conversation that's going to help us. And while you're thinking about that, Doreen, you mentioned something about expectations. I found that setting the expectation level right away, no matter what it's about, whether it's about what the client's going to get from you as a service, whether that's what the employee should be looking for, setting that expectation needs to be done early and often. That's the first rule. The other rule that I've learned later in life was hire slow, fire fast.
Yes.
I was very bad at that. Cohen, do you stay out of that, or?
No, I mean, we have 18 people.
Right.
I have 4 direct reports. So I still, it's a part of daily life. Spend most of my time coaching, understanding, holding accountable. So I've found over the years, communication, just bringing the topic up, setting the expectations like you were just saying, and then coaching the person through it can a lot of times really move someone from being a B- employee to being a solid A employee. They just need some guidance sometimes.
Right. All right, Kim, do you want to go with your 5 points that we should take away?
Yeah, so I would start with the first point is to begin with cultivating awareness. As Doreen talked about at the beginning, cultivating your awareness of your own emotions, what's going on for you and what's going on for your employees. And another way to cultivate awareness in a more formal way is through, and something that's very simple and accessible, is through a mindfulness app. So Wise at Work and Headspace are 2 apps that you can subscribe to. They're both free, and they both speak to, they're a little more formal in their approach and a little less spiritual. So a little more formal in their approach in Wise at Work is specifically about coping with workplace stress. So cultivate your awareness, download the apps, give yourself brain breaks. Take some time, even 5 minutes, to get up from your Zoom meeting, get a drink of water, do a couple stretches, put in your headphones, listen to a song, rock out for a few minutes, and begin to cultivate a culture of wellness within your workplace. So begin to talk about mental health. Don't make it taboo. Don't make it embarrassing. Normalize it as part of mental health is wellness. Mental health is health. And it's something that we all struggle with at one time or another. And the final thing I would offer, and maybe the most important, is to just pay attention, be attuned to what's going on with your employees. If you notice that somebody's really struggling or somebody's reached out to you, just encourage them to get help. And if you need that life preserver for yourself, don't be afraid to use it.
You know, Kim, I have to tell you, when Tony Soprano went to go get counseling,
yeah,
I had a hard time with it. I'm telling you the God's honest truth. But I think I've grown since that point. Doreen, your points?
I just want to say that the killing didn't stop.
No, it did not.
So just so we know, all of what Kim said is really important. So I'll try not to overlap, although I know that I will. So obviously, it's really important, as we were just talking about, Jock, is clarifying and articulating outcomes. So when we're looking to address stress in the environment, the first thing is to recognize that stress is a thing. It's not the question of, is there stress in the environment? There is stress in the environment. Acknowledge the fact that there's stress in the environment and be open about it. So in order to alleviate, even before specificity around it, so we know that there's stress. So what do we do in the normal foundation of work experience? We call it employee engagement, but I like to call it the employee experience, to make it more about them from the perspective. So where a manager can clarify and articulate expected outcomes and be open about intentions, so that's a big one. Another one is to create conversation. Conversation should be the normal way of communicating in the environment. And by conversation, I mean that there's openness, there's questions, there's a trust-based engagement, there's a willingness to go beyond just moving information back and forth, to really use that as a way to understand to kind of grow the other awareness that is the next step above self-awareness. Another thing that is very stressful for people is what they don't know. So it comes back to the uncertainty principle. So it's really important for managers, don't mix positive feedback with constructive criticism. So if you have something to say to your employee, it's a really good idea to find reasons to compliment them. That's awesome. It's also important not to ignore when correction is a thing, when it's necessary to be a thing. If conversation is powerful in the workplace, then those conversations get easier and easier around criticism. But don't put them together because you minimize both of them. Another thing is to be open about the impact of stress. As Kim has said with mental health, this is not a negative thing. If, you know, to really open up the conversation around what can we do in the workplace, engage everybody in the workplace. What can we do to address and minimize stress in the workplace? But don't minimize it in a way that allows people to believe that we're not supposed to show it. So it's stress is there. So how do we address it and get everybody inside of that? So it might mean taking a walk. It might mean putting a volleyball net on the yard. It might be having people bring, you know, at the beginning, what I used to do in my corporate days, because nobody was local. So I had, during vacation time, every meeting started with a few slides from everybody's vacations. So we tried to make things personal to create that opportunity. And then, I don't remember how many I did here, but let's say this is the 5th one. Address any concerns that come up in the workplace. Address the concerns as they come up, and that allows people to feel like they're connected and that they belong. And that's a powerful mitigator for stress too, is for people to feel like they belong.
Okay.
Like,
Well,
can I add one?
Go ahead, Kim.
So the one thing I would add, just to build on what Doreen just said, is we are currently at AdventureWorks talking about transitioning back into the office and what that will look like. So from the employee standpoint, we sent out just a 3-question survey, because sometimes, especially if you have numerous employees, you know, more than 20 maybe, they may not come to you personally with their concerns. But we just asked 3 questions. What's your primary concern with your health coming back to work? What's your primary concern with distancing? What's your primary concern with hygiene and cleanliness of the workspace? So very specific questions that they could answer anonymously. And then we kind of know what we're working with and what concerns we can begin to address in how we can engage the employees in their own process of managing.
Yeah. That's great, Kim.
Great idea. Great idea. All right, we're going to have to wrap it up here. Colin, do you want to bring us home?
Absolutely. First thing, I'm going to post in the chat, there's a link to a survey that we've got at DeKalb County UNITES right now. We went to great lengths coming up with a survey that we're encouraging everyone, and you're going to see this out on all kinds of different streams. But we'd love it if everyone could grab that link and share it out to everyone in your social media, your customers if you want to. And ultimately what this survey is about is we're reaching out to as many people as we can in DeKalb County and a little bit beyond, but mostly DeKalb County, to figure out what are consumers thinking about when they return to work? What are their concerns? What are they worried about, in order for small businesses to start understanding what the mindscape of their potential customers are going to be, so they can prepare accordingly and make the adjustments needed in order to make people feel safe to be able to come to their business and patronize them. But please follow that link. There's a bunch of information on there, and at a minimum, if you can, get that survey out to as many people as possible so we can take that information and utilize it in our small business community. So thank you. I do want to thank yes, Courtney.
I just wanted to let everyone know I did put Kim's information and Doreen's information in there, as well as for Doreen's coaching and AdventureWorks. There were a few questions that came in ahead of time that I was going to ask you. So I will just forward those emails to you ladies if you can kind of take care of those. That'd be awesome.
Thanks, Courtney.
Absolutely. And our business partnership page through our website, if you are interested in utilizing that resource, you can find information on our website.
Okay.
And I'll make the offer to anybody that wants to have a conversation with me. You can have it for free. Every time I serve on a panel or participate in one of these, I always give away free consultations. So take advantage of that. I don't sell anything. I don't create obligations. So it's just for my edification. It's for me, it's fun.
So I do want to thank Doreen, Kim, and Jock, especially for taking the time today on today's webinar. We did record this and we'll post it on our website. So within probably an hour or two, you can go to DeKalbCountyUnites.com, click on webinars, and you'll see a link to this previous webinar. So thank you so much for the three of you today. Thanks always, Courtney, for helping me out. And DeKalb County Unites, click on webinars and you can see the future ones coming up. Be sure and register, and you all stay safe out there and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.